Hello everyone, I am Shivam Manka and I'll be presenting this case study interview today. The purpose of this video is to give you an understanding of how a case study interview goes and what is expected of you in it. This video is divided into two parts. In the first part, I'll be going through the case study interview and present my understanding of it. In the second part, I'll be analyzing the interview as a whole and try to provide a structure to it of how the interview went. Today's case study interview is in terms of profitability, and it's labeled as telecom billing process. For context, all the black text with blue background which you see is the conversation of the interviewer, and all the blue text with white background which you see is the statements of the candidate. Let's begin. We have been approached by the CEO of a telecommunication provider company. He is worried with the high expenditure in the billing process and wants your help in identifying areas where you can reduce cost. The first statement said by the interviewer is very important because it tells you the scope of where exactly you have to focus in. So we have information that we are approached by the CEO of a telecommunication provider, and they are having problems of high expenditure in their billing process, and we have to figure out how we can reduce that cost. So we are told straightforward that we have to focus on cost, but it's a good habit of asking whether you want whether they want you to whether they want you to focus on other areas as well to reduce the expenditure. But it is pretty straightforward. You can go ahead with just focusing on the cost. What are the different ways in which the client company sends out bills to the customers? Okay, so now the interviews begin and the candidate started asking questions. A profitability interview is divided into three parts. In the first part, you try to understand the client's business more. What is the competitive scenario and what is the overall uh, environment where the client operates in. In the second part, you try to structure the situation and figure out where exactly the problem is coming from. And in the third part, you provide recommendations and solutions. So we are in the first part where we're trying to understand more of the client's business. So the candidate has asked, what are the different ways in which the client's company send out bills to the customers? There are three ways in which bill can be sent to the customers: through post, internet, or by SMS. For this interview, just concentrate on post on internet. Since sending bills through internet would involve minimalistic cost, focusing first on snail mail and looking at different cost component uh, cost component involved in the supply chain. Okay, so we are trying to focus on in-person mail which is sent because that is usually the one where high expenditure is expected from. Sure, go ahead and list down the various cost component. There will be cost involved in buying raw materials, printing bills, sending bills to customers, and uh, fixed costs involved will be infrastructure costs and employee costs. So it's usually a good approach to either do one or the other. Either you divide the cost into fixed cost and variable cost and then categorize it, or you break the whole supply chain from raw materials to the final bill generation paper, so that you figure out where exactly the problem is coming from. In this interview, the candidate is trying to do a mix of both, where he has listed fixed costs as infrastructure and employee costs, and then also he has tried to break down the supply chain of raw material, printing bills, and set to sending bills, which is not a good approach, but you can get away with it if you can figure out the solution. Sometimes, if you cannot figure out the solution because you might miss import some of the expected reasoning with you taking such an approach of mixed structure. Assume both rental costs and employee costs to be optimal. Okay, so if rental cost and employee cost is optimal, then we have to focus on the uh, raw material uh, raw material, printing bills, and sending bills, the first part of the cost. Okay, so let's begin by evaluating the first component of the value chain. Raw materials for printing are paper and ink. Let's take paper first and try to reduce paper cost, followed by ways to reduce the cost of ink. Sounds reasonable? Go ahead. We can bring down the paper cost by using thinner paper, by using smaller size of paper, by printing on both sides of the bill, by leaving lesser margins, maybe also recyclable paper. To reduce the cost of the ink used, reduce the number of words on the bill by eliminating unnecessary details, reduce the font size and only print a black and white bill to save on the colored ink. Should I move ahead and explore ways in which the client can save cost in sending the bills to the customer? Yes. Why don't you help the client in reducing their expenditure in sending the bills by post? Okay. So the total annual cost in sending the bills by courier will be equal to number of bills sent per month into frequency of the bill sent. Which is base price for mail plus price per kilometer into number of kilometers. Let's start by price per kilometer first. To reduce this, switch to cheaper mail courier service. This can be achieved by using regional courier services as well. Uh, Next, I would want to understand the base price for mail. How many hubs does the client have to send out the bills to the customers? Okay, so it's kind of a mix of a lot of things. So the candidate is trying to figure out how to calculate the expenditure, provide some suggestions also to reduce it, and then put a question to a next point it has, which is not very structured and might open a lot of verticals for the interviewer to follow. So it's good to reserve your suggestions after you figure out the problem, unless asked explicitly by the interviewer. Like the candidate already suggested a switch to a cheaper mail courier service provider, which could be a good idea to present it at the end, because it might not be the problem. It might not be actually the problem of the client. So it's just more jargons or more words for the interviewer to follow, which is not needed. So the candidate has asked a question at the end. It has moved on from that point of how much it's going to cost to send the bills. It uh, with the formula logic, and it has asked the question: Is he wants to understand the base price of the mail, and then he has asked that how many hubs does the client have to send out bills to the customers. As of now, the client has one facility in Mumbai, and the bills are mailed all across India from the Mumbai hub itself. Okay, another way in which we can optimize this is have smaller facilities in cities like Delhi, Chennai, Kolkata, and send the bills to customers in that region from there. It would have served the purpose of lower base price as well as quicker and timely delivery of bills with lower bill loss rates. Interesting. Uh, how else can you reduce the cost of sending the bill to the customers? Apart from this, we can reduce the frequency of sending out the bills to the customer. Uh, Here, the trade-off is between the cost saved in mailing the bills and interest foregone from the money received a month earlier. Let's reduce the frequency of bills from one per month to one per 2 months. Uh, when do you think this will become feasible? Okay, to analyze this, I would want to understand the appropriate cost in sending out one bill by mail courier. Okay, you can assume that one-time cost of sending the bill by mail courier is 20, and for for all practical purposes, take the interest rate to be 10% annually. By not sending the bill by not sending bills every month, the client will save 20 rupees per bill. Assuming the rate of interest to be approximately 1% per month, the bill amount should be above 2000 rupees for the client to be making losses by reducing frequency of sending bills. That is, if the bill amount is more than 2000, then the bill should be sent every month. But the majority of bill value in India would be much less than even 500 rupees. So in that case, reducing the frequency becomes a cost saving option. So pretty good analysis or played with numbers by the candidate that can figure out that if the bill cost is more than 2000, that it makes sense with the 10% annual interest which the company is earning to not send the to only send the bill if the amount is more than 2000. Otherwise, it's gonna be a more expensive option to send the bill every month. Can you think of a way in which you can reduce the cost overall? I think sending the bills through internet or SMS would lead to massive reductions in overall cost. How much does it currently cost to sending a bill through the internet? Around 5 paise. Okay, so our aim should be encourage our customers to start using internet as a medium to pay bills or view bills. It, Interesting. And how do you plan to do that? In the initial phase, we can target those customers who use internet to pay their bills. We should incentivize them by telling them about the benefits of sending bills online. A few of them are prompt delivery of bills, no losses, no fudging of content. It would get lost during transit, lesser chance of a bill going to the wrong address. Convenience of of having a bill online. You can check it whether you want, and there's no hassle of storing them carefully. Uh, Incentivize people to use internet to pay bills by giving some discounts in the initial phase. So it just provides it some option in the two, um, provide some suggestions and recommendations to promote sending bills via internet in two category. One is increasing awareness and explaining their customer the benefits of using internet for paying their bills. And also in the second option is to incentivize people uh, to use internet rather than a post service for bill payment. So it was pretty well done. The candidate was able to come up with a lot of exhaustive options for every question asked by the interviewer. Although it was not very much structured, but the candidate was able to get by it by staying on track of figuring out how where exactly the problem comes from and what are the ways in which the client can reduce it. Now we are going to move to the second part of the interview, where second part of the video, where I'll be analyzing the interview as a whole uh, to present how exactly the interview went. Okay, so it's also very important to have a very clear and simple, minimal rough sheet because sometimes at the end of the interview, the interviewer might ask for a rough sheet and he should be able to understand everything in one glance. Okay, so interview notes, reduce cost of bill, a cost benefit analysis for for each mode of sending bill, reducing the cost of preparing bill itself. Case facts. Three ways of sending bill: SMS, internet, snail mail. Internet and SMS are optimized, possibility only in snail mail. Rental and employee costs are optimal. Only one billing hub in India, in Mumbai, and bills are sent all over India from Mumbai. Cost of sending a bill by snail mail is 20 rupees. Cost of sending by internet is 5 paise. And rate of annual return is 10%. Okay, let's see how it was structured. So cost was divided into fixed cost and variable cost. Fixed cost was employed and infrastructure, which was told to us that there's no issue in that side. So in variable cost, we divided into the whole chain, which is uh, raw material. Okay. Yeah. So raw material, printing bill, and sending bill to customers. And the raw material was divided into ink and paper. In the ink side, there were some suggestions given how to reduce the ink by making the lower words less, using black and white only, using small font, and for paper reduction, there were suggestions like number of bits should be less, size of the paper should be small, utilization of the entire paper should could be a good option to reduce the paper size. There was no, and then the printing bill option was not explored much, and one option which was explored was sending bill to customers, and to save money for sending bills to the customer, some suggestions were given, which is increase ticket size, hubs for shorter distance, reduce frequency, move to cheaper options. Recommendations. So the final recommendations offered by the candidate were reduce the unnecessary expenditure on paper and ink. This being an inelastic good, customers won't be bothered by smaller size or lesser words until relevant info is present. Uh, Explore the alternate route of sending the bill to the customers, keeping in mind the evolving technology and try to push customers towards using it. Highest cost component of snail mail can be brought down by reducing the frequency of the snail mail to one bill for 2 months, only when bill amount is less than 2000. Okay, so some of the observations were each cost component should be broken down into multiple cost levers to ensure that nothing is being missed out, which was not very well done with by the candidate. Breaking down cost of snail mail into components help the interviewee to analyze each one carefully. Further, having to shift the customer to a low cost option is also relevant and important to bring down cost drastically as for having convenience in the future. Overall, the case is fairly simple. One needs to be exhaustive and try looking at cost levers from different aspects. So yeah, the case was pretty straightforward, and the candidate did pretty well in identifying and suggesting improvements to reduce cost. And I hope you guys learned a lot from this interview. Please do subscribe to the channel because I will be uploading one case study interview every day. And it is a very good habit to watch one interview every day to get into the mindset if you are uh, planning a career in consulting or if you have a case study interview coming up. So, hope you have a nice day and thank you for watching.